Hey everyone, welcome. Grab your coffee, kick back, and join us for today's chat. So, we are going to talk about why AI native platforms are outshining legacy RPA with AI bolt on. Basically, why the future belongs to platforms built for AI from the ground up. Ramana, what's brewing in the world of business automation lately?
Agents, agents, agents.
Yeah.
Seriously. I know the evolution of the automation space started off with handwritten records and manual data entry to all the way to intelligent automation with AI ML coming into play with chatbots and document understanding almost half a decade ago. Now, with all your experience in this space, Deepak, what do you think is the big leap of agentic automation is all about?
Well, let's dive in, Ramana. So, if we really look back, the automation journey has been an evolutionary hassle, right? We started with purely manual processes, obviously, right? And then rule-based automation started popping up. Your basic, if then logic and all that.
And then the robotic process automation, RPA, that was a big step for many, handling repetitive tasks, especially front office stuff.
Yeah, and RPA made a big splash, if you remember. It took over a lot of the clicking and typing. And most recently, we have seen intelligent automation emerge, trying to add a bit more, let's say, cognitive ability, if you will.
Using some basic AI, machine learning, OSCR, and that kind of thing, right?
Correct. And now we are in the age of agentic automation. So agents that don't just execute rules, but can actually learn, adapt, and collaborate across systems. Think of them less like robots and more like digital leads who improve with experience. Basically, self learning probabilistic agents as opposed to deterministic flows in the RPA and intelligent automation phases.
Okay, let's kind of unpack this a little bit. Many enterprises are chasing the promise of automation, right? Investing heavily, putting resources in. Everyone wants more efficiency. But what we often see, and maybe you've seen this too, they kind of hit the wall. They get stuck. And they're struggling basically to scale beyond those first, incremental gains. Scale, I believe, are like, more or less like two things, right? Scale in terms of process automation coverage and scale in terms of expanding automation across processes, functions, and use cases.
Exactly, Ramana. And we are talking about, bridging a pretty significant gap here. So moving from automating maybe 30% of activities, which is good, to reach a much more ambitious 50 or maybe 80%. And not in one process, by the way, but across as many processes in as many possible functions and use cases.
Yes, and I think that's the latest research also, and that confirms that this is a possibility. And that stuff today, I think, needs a lot of human hands on it. The fascinating part really is that we often chase automation just like it's a series of tactical incremental fixes.
Exactly, Ramana. Incremental is the key word. We optimized tasks, made things faster, maybe fewer errors, but it wasn't the breakthrough, not the leap needed for the really significant enterprise-wide scale. It felt like, pushing a boulder uphill, just getting a bit better and bit further each time.
Got you. So, what's the reality check, Deepak? What do these things and these technologies typically cap out?
Well, Ramana, the reality is business rule engines, they maybe cover 10, 20 of a complex process. IPA might push the boundary, that number to up to 20, maybe 30%. Even so-called intelligent automation often peaks around 30 to 50%. And that leaves a massive chunk of activities still needing people.
So, half or more is still manual.
Often, yes. And based on what we are seeing, agentic automation is really the only path identified right now that can truly take us to that aspirational 50 to 80% range, maybe even higher in some cases.
And crucially, what do enterprises actually need to unlock true scalable agentic automation, Deepak. We want the audience to discover the key elements that could transform automation from just, a tactical win into a strategic enterprise-wide revolution, right? And that's the goal.
Exactly, yes. Because unlike the rigid, deterministic automation of the past, follow these exact steps no matter what.
Mhm.
Agentic automation, on the other hand, is flexible. It's scalable, and crucially, it's powered by self-learning autonomous agents. It can handle variations.
So when you're calling it the only path, I think it's a strong statement.
Yeah.
What makes you so sure that agentic automation won't just be another buzzword that hits its own limits down the line? I mean, what fundamentally sets it apart? And if we are to keep to break these ceilings, what's the real blocker? Why is it so hard for enterprises to break free?
That's a good question, Ramana. And I think the fundamental difference lies in the architecture. It tackles the very obstacle you're pointing to. The root cause of this struggle is the sheer architectural complexity that's built up over decades in most enterprises.
Okay. Can you unpack that architectural complexity, please?
Sure. Well, we started, relatively simple, as you see on the screen. I'm sure, everybody or everyone remembers this three-tier architecture. More of a client-server approach that used to be really one-dimensional, top to bottom data flow. As technology evolved, such as addition of new channels like smartphones and business needs evolved, it gave birth to SOA, service-oriented architecture, that based architecture, and which further evolved into REST APIs, microservices-based architectures, and all that. And all this added an additional integration layer concept into the overall enterprise. So organizations also started, embracing cloud during this time. And this was a two-dimensional architecture if you really look at it. Industries got, even more competitive, and so enterprises needed more agility and flexibility to fulfill their customer needs. They wanted to build customer-facing applications in a rapid fashion to provide more controls to the customers, and that gave birth to a no low code and other tools that could provide, agility to businesses. And this became really the three-dimensional architecture, if you will. And if you go further, as you can see with time, the simple three-tier architecture became a complex architecture because businesses and IT teams kept on adding tools and technologies as per the business needs without even knowing how those tools and technologies will talk to each other. At this stage, it's not just the layers that talk to each other, but the systems in those layers need to talk to each other either in the same layer or a cross layer to fulfill a business need.
It starts sounding like this geological strata, right? The troposphere, the stratosphere, and the ionosphere, and all of these things.
Yeah, exactly. And now on top of all that, we are throwing AI and machine learning models, if you will. And that made our three-dimensional architecture, which was already complex, by the way, even more complicated than ever, right? And this really is getting into, if you see, Ramana, to a four or even n-dimensional architecture, wherein businesses need to rapidly adapt to employee and customers' changing needs, provide personalized experiences, and be even more agile and nimble when it comes to the change.
Yeah, as you said, four or even n-dimensional architecture where systems are just disconnected. Sometimes they're actively, fighting each other, right?
Yeah.
Think of trying the connecting a smart home hub to an old rotary phone, a streaming service, and your local library's paper filing system.
Right. And each is its own dimension, if you will. And without some kind of unified operating system, they just fail to connect. They create interference for each other. And that's the kind of friction we see when people try to just layer automation on top of this complex reality.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me get this straight. Right. In a possible enterprise, we're talking about agents on every platform like CRM, ERP, system of record or
Yeah.
ITSM or customer service, you take all of these things, right? They aren't all the agents, these are not connected with each other to ensure a seamless process automation. Is that the right understanding here?
Precisely, yes. So friction, duplication of effort, and real brittleness, if you will. So we have seen it happen. A simple security update, for example, takes down a dozen automations because they were just bolted on, not designed for that multi-layered world. And then it's all hands on deck for manual fixes.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. That house analogy really paints a picture.
Yeah.
And the maintenance on that kind of setup must be like, really insane, right? So when companies try to add AI, this supposed intelligence on top of these tangled structures, what happens? Uh, what's the result of that kind of like, probably bolt-on approach?
Well, Ramana, that's where it really starts to unravel. How far can you push that patchwork before it breaks? Yeah. That's where bolt-on AI really runs into major problems. It seems like a quick fix, right? Just add some AI smartness here and there.
Got it. Like, sprinkle some AI here and there, sort of, right? Yeah.
Exactly. But it often leads to what we call agent sprawl. Suddenly, you've got dozens or maybe hundreds of these little siloed mini automations, each doing its own thing.
So no centralized control and central coordination, right?
None, right? And that makes them incredibly hard to adapt. Change something over here, and you accidentally break five other automations over there. It's a domino effect. Super frustrating.
Of course, of course. And plus, you end up with these fragmented views as well, right? Little dashboards everywhere showing tiny pieces of puzzle, but has a clear picture of how the overall automation strategy is actually performing.
Exactly. Yes, and very little holistic visibility, if you will. And the logic connecting these bolt-ons is usually rigid and hard-coded. It can't easily adapt if the business process changes or new information comes in, for example. And ultimately, what happens? Operations teams just become totally dependent on IT for constant fixes and constant tweaks. It basically eats away any efficiency gains you thought you had.
Gotcha. So it's like teaching a calculator to speak, right? It looks impressive maybe because it's doing something new, but it still can't think strategically. Yeah.
That's a great analogy, Ramana. It captures the limitations perfectly.
Yeah.
It's mimicking, intelligence, not embedding it, basically.
Got it. Okay. So if bolt-ons aren't delivering true intelligence or strategic value, then it's clear we need something more fundamentally different, right,
Yeah.
Deepak?
Yeah.
So something built for this complexity. I think agentic automation is the answer to it, right? So Deepak, let's probably get into the core of what makes agentic automation so different. I mean, it's not just about having lots of agents running around, right? It's about orchestrating them, having like one brain, many hands, and that brain which coordinates all these hands, which basically means that there needs to be like one system which acts as a orchestrator for all the agents from all the platforms like RPA bots, enterprise applications, APIs, all at like one place.
Exactly, Ramana. And if you see, this orchestrator isn't just a traffic call. It reasons. The fourth part is thought and reasoning. It looks at the task, understands the context, and plans the next best steps, like a project manager, if you will, who knows what comes first, what can wait, and what depends on what.
Yeah. And then comes your action and routing, right?
Yeah,
Once the plan is clear, the
yeah,
orchestrator then assigns these tasks to the right agent. Think of it
yeah.
like, within one invoice process, a manager saying, hey, finance board, you create this invoice.
Yeah.
And then a collections agent, hey, you handle the collections. It's smart delegation, sorts of.
Exactly. And once those agents act, the orchestrator doesn't just walk away. It goes into the observation and reflection. It basically checks, did this work? Did the output match the expectations? Was the customer's request really resolved? That feedback loop is really built in.
Yeah, very important. And then there's this magic part which is called autonomy, right? Over time, this orchestrator starts to learn from human interventions. And at first, you might need to guide it, but after it sees the same scenario a few more times, it can handle its own.
Yeah.
Just like a new employee shadowing a senior, right? One day they don't need the help anymore.
And this isn't one and done. Orchestrator uses loop and refinement that we call. It keeps adjusting the plan, refining the actions, and iterating until the task is fully resolved. Like, let me take an analogy, like a chef tasting the dish as they cook and adding a pinch of more salt as and when needed, right?
Of course, yes. But then, again, let's be clear, right? This is not reckless autonomy, right? There's always a human in the loop whenever things get fuzzy, right? If the orchestrator encounters ambiguity, say a policy decision that's unclear, it pauses, asks a human, gets the approvals. And here is the kicker, right? The next time the same situation comes up, it remembers the human decision and applies it automatically. But then, there is a trigger that could be like, put up by the human itself. Otherwise, or guardrails that level to ensure security, right?
And that's the power of orchestration, Ramana.
Yeah.
So it's not just automation for the sake of speed, but intelligent, context aware, and continuous learning. So really, going back to what you're talking about, one brain, many hands.
Yes, Deepak, absolutely. And that's how I think, enterprises finally move from these patchwork automations which we spoke about to a system that's more proactive, adaptive, and most importantly scalable, right?
Exactly. And we are talking about agentic process automation in enterprises.
Gotcha. And it's powered by AI native platform with an end-to-end orchestration layer, and that's what gives it that flexibility and scalability that the older methods just lack, right?
Exactly. Yes. The key is that it enables enterprises to finally automate that much higher percentage. That's like 50 to 80% we talked about. The
Gotcha.
stuff that still needs human intervention today. But crucially, it does it with centralized governance and predictable yet adaptive workflows.
So control and flexibility together, right?
Exactly. It's about creating intelligent systems that understand context, make informed decisions, and actually evolve over time rather than just blindly executing scripts.
Got you. So if that's the target, what are the absolute must-haves and the non-negotiables? Like, simply put, what are the foundational pillars of an AI native platform which can enable it to deliver this kind of scalable agentic automation?
Okay, so good point, right, Ramana? So there are six foundational pillars that we see as absolutely non negotiable. First, single pane of control and governance. Think of it like a central cockpit or maybe control tower. So one place to manage, so it's a single and one place to manage, monitor, and govern all your agents and workflows across the entire enterprise. So cuts right through that agent sprawl issue.
Mm. And then there is interoperability. This is
Yeah,
massive, right?
yeah,
Enterprises, just like we just covered in the previous slides where you showed all the architecture, Deepak, these are pretty complex ecosystems, right? So you
yeah.
need seamless integration, not just with like modern systems, but crucially with your legacy systems too.
Exactly. So avoid the rip and replace nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah.
The AI needs to work with what you already have and not replace everything. Now, the common misstep here, assuming that just because a system has an API, is truly interoperable. That's not really the case. Third, observability by design.
Yeah.
This means visibility isn't an afterthought, by the way. It's baked right in from the start. So you really, need real-time ROI tracking, detailed audit trails for compliance, and confidence scoring, and all that. Understanding how sure the agent is about its action.
Yeah. Yeah. So you basically know when human oversight might be needed. And the surprising fact, how many companies roll out automation without a clear, granular way to measure its actual business impact in real time, beyond just like it's right, or measuring the wrong thing, right? So, okay. Four, it's more about agentic orchestration, right?
Yeah.
Exactly what we spoke about a while ago, but a
Yeah.
level deeper here. It's about dynamically coordinating all your agents. The orchestrator needs to understand your context, make decisions, guide agents adaptively as the process unfolds or conditions change.
Absolutely. And if you talk about the fifth one, composability and reusability.
This is a good one.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, the ability to build once and
Yeah.
reuse everywhere. So you
Yeah.
need modular capabilities, modular agents, modular skills that can be assembled and scaled across different processes and departments. So this prevents reinventing the wheel and stops that agent sprawl.
And sixth, maybe another really, really important thing is learning, right?
Yeah.
And this is where AI really comes in to its own. The agents and the orchestrator itself must continuously adapt and improve with every run, every interaction, every piece of feedback. They
Yeah.
should get smarter, more efficient, more autonomous about that learning. It's really just advanced scripting, isn't it?
Pretty much. It lacks the agentic quality. Wow. So, wow. Okay. So, those six pillars, single pane of control, interoperability, observability, agentic orchestration, composability, and learning, they sound absolutely critical.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Deepak, we've been talking about why bolt-ons fail and why enterprises need an AI native platform, right? But this is, I think, where it comes really together. The architecture of the platform itself.
Exactly. And think of the Kore.ai agent platform as the engine room for
Mhm.
AI process, if you will.
Mhm.
Every capability like orchestration, security, observability is all baked in, not bolted on. It's the foundation that all your automations can safely and intelligently run on.
Let's unpack that, right? At the core, we have multi-agent
Yeah.
agents that don't live in silos. They collaborate, share memory, and can move from guided to full autonomy. That's huge leap from brittle workflows.
Right. And powering those agents is search and data AI that we haven't touched upon. So knowledge graphs, connectors, retrieval, augmented generation, all that. Basically, agents don't just act blindly, they act with context.
Yeah, and then there's the tooling layer, right? You've got
Yes.
no code, pro code builders, templates, SDKs, whether you are a business analyst or a developer, doesn't matter. You can build, extend, and compose these agents without friction.
Exactly. And we didn't forget the AI engineering side, right? So, most important as well. Prompt Studio, Evaluation Studio, Model Hub, right? So, enterprises need a way to standardize how AI is trained, tuned, and deployed. This gives them the control and reliability that they need.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's a brilliant innovation in itself, right? And none of these work without observability.
Yeah.
Like full tracing, analytics, monitoring, you can actually see what's happening, like measure ROI and keep automations accountable and all of that, right?
Yeah, and layer on, safety and governance. So
Yeah.
enterprise grade security, guardrails, compliance, because at the end of the day, this has to work in a regulated industries just
Yeah.
as well as in IT or HR, right?
Correct. Correct. So when you put all of this together, integrations, cloud, on-prem flexibility, 50 plus connectors, platform really acts as a foundational layer for AI for process. It's not just automating tasks. And I remember what you just called out, Deepak. It's just exactly what this is, right? It's enabling a new era of process automation where agents can think, adapt, collaborate across the enterprise and not just like within one single siloed function or a process, right?
Exactly, Ramana. And if, legacy RPA was about, teaching bots to click, this is about building a brain that coordinates many hands.
Yeah,
That's the shit. And
yeah,
that's why we say AI for process isn't an add on, it
yeah,
starts with the platform.
yeah. And then on top of all of this, you consider the marketplace as well, right? With hundreds of pre-built agents, templates ready to go, different industries, banking, healthcare, retail, IT, HR. That's really, really, another add-on.
Yes, and that's huge accelerator.
Yeah,
Speeds things up considerably, I imagine.
yeah, hugely. We have over 200 plus pre-built agent templates across multiple functions for top industries like banking, insurance, healthcare, and all of the others.
Exactly. And with enterprise grade security, absolutely designed for massive scalability and extensibility. And fundamentally, it has to build trust. Whether you are automating complex HR onboarding, streamlining IT device provisioning, or enhancing customer service interactions, or even tackling, intricate industry specific processes.
Yeah. So a true AI native platform is built from the ground up for that kind of scale and adaptability. So if we really connect all of this back to the bigger picture, it becomes pretty clear, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so to really move the needle from, say, probably you said like 30% automation coverage to an impactful 50 to 60% Deepak, more and at scale, you fundamentally need an AI native platform.
Exactly. So, what does this all mean for you, our listeners? This whole discussion, it really raises an important question, doesn't it?
Yeah. So think about the processes in your work, in your organization, the ones that still require significant human interventions. The ones which are complex, multi step, maybe bottlenecked, maybe prone to error.
Yeah. And how might an AI native platform, one designed with those, six pillars that we discussed, the single pane of control, interoperability, built in observability, agentic orchestration, composability, and continuous learning, how would that fundamentally change the way you even approach automating that challenge? It's a different way of thinking.
Of course, yes, it really is. Consider the leap from just automating individual tasks, making them faster, to enabling true self learning adaptive agents, right? That's where the magic is. Like, you bring your own models, bring agents from your existing tech stack, or bring agents from on top of your existing RPA tech stack. All of these can be orchestrated on Kore.ai for process powered by agent platform.
Exactly. It is all about coexisting with the enterprise tech stack and providing governance at scale. AI for process, it's more of a complementary on top of every investment that you have made in your tech stack so far. It's not a rip and replace.
Yes. So yeah, hey, thank you so much, Deepak, for this great fireside chat. Something amazing to learn for in the entire AI for process automation industry, and their automation is really coming up, and then it's the next big thing, right? So it's been a wonderful conversation, and to all our listeners and whoever is watching on demand, really excited to show you what we've got brewing at Kore.ai. There's some real good innovations coming up. Please hit us up. You just have to go into AI Pulse. It's our virtual webinars, all of them put across in one space, which is more like a quarterly innovation update from Kore.ai. So just go out there, just check out AI Pulse on our website or on Google, and then just sign up for any of the demos, and we'll be very happy to get back to you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Ramana.